Why is interviewing candidates so hard? This video is going to answer that exact question, and I'm going to show you how to avoid common interview mistakes that are costing contractors top talent. But first, why do you have such a hard time hiring people? You're a decent person offering a decent wage for decent work. Well, part of it may be because the trades have gotten a bit of a bad rap over the years. I mean, just look at some of the comments that we've had on our channel on this. And look, I get it, you've probably heard this before, but here's what most contractors don't realize. You're probably having a hard time hiring people because you've never learned how to interview people. See, your ability to interview people is directly tied to your ability to attract and retain high performers in this industry. So why is this? Well, in 2024, 66% of Americans said they'd rather like their job than be paid more. See, a good interviewer knows how to show the right candidate that this is the job that they're gonna love. And yet most contractors waste day after day sitting in coffee shops, asking some dumb ChatGPT questions, and wondering why their turnover rate is higher than half the candidates you interviewed last month. And that is exactly why we made this video. The top 4 interview mistakes that contractors make when hiring new talent. Now, if you've been struggling with this, you're not alone. In fact, mistake number 1 might actually surprise you. But first, we've linked some templates below that's going to help you actually structure your interviews and take proper notes. So be sure to grab those before you sit down with your next candidate. All right, mistake number 1. Not knowing what you're looking for. When you walk into an interview with a candidate, how do you actually know that they're a good fit? Is that maybe they're a good person that you could just see yourself having a beer with? Or maybe that they've done a similar job in the past? Or maybe that they just seem excited about the job when you're describing it to them? These things are important for sure, I get it. But if that's all you're judging them by, then you don't really know what you're looking for in a candidate. Learning how to structure an interview based on the traits that you're looking for is essential. Before you think I'm just making all this stuff up, check this out. In 1998, a study showed that unstructured interviews predicted job success only 14% of the time. So here is how you can do better. Think about what actual traits a person would need to be successful in this role. Not just be successful working with you, but to be actually successful in the role specifically. If you need some inspiration, we typically draw from 10 different traits when helping our members do this, and you can find that in the downloads below. For example, a project manager, they might need some level of tenacity. An office manager definitely needs precision. And a salesperson, they ultimately need some level of attainment. Next, you need to prepare these questions to ask to help you figure out whether this person has those traits or not. Spoiler alert, if you just ask them, are you a goal-oriented person? They're probably gonna say yes. Instead, try things like, what achievements are you proud of? What did it take for you to achieve this? And then be prepared to probe deeper. This is all part of a process called ideal candidate profiling. Basically, thinking through who you're actually looking for in detail so you can go out there and find that person. If you want to learn more about that, then good news, we've included a link to our ideal candidate profiling guide in the description. So feel free to grab that to help you get started. Now, here's where contractors really mess up. Mistake number 2, asking the wrong questions. What do you think you would do if you're on a site and 2 crew members started a fight in front of a client? Stop right there. If you're asking that question, you've already lost. Repeat after me. Hypothetical questions are not good questions. You see, I don't care what somebody thinks they would do in a situation. I care about what they have done. Because what they have done will almost always tell you what they will do. See, past behavior predicts future behavior. Also off the table are close-ended yes-no questions and questions where you're basically leading the witness. Like, are you a good leader? Or how does following up on invoices sound to you? Instead, you need to learn how to ask behavioral questions, like the ones we put in the downloads for you, and then actually continue to probe deeper. Here's what this looks like in the real world. Let's say you're interviewing someone for a project manager role, and you decide that you want to look into tenacity. Okay, well, you're going to start with a nice, very open-ended question, like, tell me about the hardest job you've ever had. And they say, oh, well, I've worked in the oil fields. I've done 60 hours a week, hot weather, away from my family. It was extremely hard. And you could probably just stop there and check the box. In fact, most of you probably do. Or you could go deeper. Tell me about your hardest week. What exactly was challenging about it? How did you feel at the end of that week? How long did this job actually last for, and what did you learn from that experience? peel back the layers of the onion. You know you've done a pretty good job when you start to hear the actual story. You want to feel the sun beating on the back of their head. You want to feel the phone calls that they made to their family every Friday. You want to taste the beer that they've had with their team at the end of the day. People can lie about their experience all they want, but very few can make up specific stories. Mastering behavioral and probing questions are going to change your interview game forever. Ever been swindled by a smooth-talking candidate who turns out to be totally full of shit? Let me know in the comments. I love a good horror story. Now, this next mistake, it's costing you your best candidates, and I bet you don't even know it. Mistake number 3, not using an objective scoring system. Even if you know what you're looking for and you ask all the right questions, how do you account for your own personal bias? And yes, I hate to say it, but your interviews, they're biased. Even if you're an open-minded person. Some studies suggest that something as simple as interview order can skew your opinion on a candidate. According to Forbes, you're more likely to view the last person you interviewed favorably, just simply due to recency bias. That's the idea that you're more likely to remember the things that have just happened. And the people that you interviewed in the middle of your process, well, they're pretty likely to be forgotten. So there's no question that you need an objective scoring system to mitigate this as much as possible. We've got a template that you can use for this in the description, so grab that if you need help getting started. Here's the simple version. Look back at the traits you decided on earlier and structure your interview notes around each one. During the interview itself, look for clear examples that suggest they have each trait. At the end, give your candidate a score from 1 to 5 for each specific trait. 1 means weak or no real examples. 5 means several extremely strong examples. This prevents you from hiring based on gut feeling, bias, or desperation. Now, this last mistake is one that most of you are doing completely subconsciously. And you know that you're doing this if you're ending your interviews completely exhausted. Mistake number 4, forgetting to listen. How much do you usually talk during an interview? If you answered more than 20% of the time, you're probably not listening enough. In an ideal interview, you're letting the candidate talk 80% of the time. Your job is to set things up at the beginning, talk a little bit about the role, and then ask good probing questions. That's it. The rest of the time, you're actively listening. Now, before you go say you're a great listener, here's some hard facts. One study found that 96% of people say they are good listeners, but actually only retain half of what other people say to them. Here's a few quick tips on how to do a little bit better at this. Remove distractions. Please, for the love of God, turn off your phone. Focus more on understanding them, not just hearing them. And don't be afraid of a little bit of silence while you think about your next question. Trust me, it's not as awkward as you think. Active listening is arguably the most important thing we've talked about today, so do not sleep on this. So there you have it, the 4 biggest mistakes that we see contractors make during interviews. We've linked a bunch of resources in the description, including templates we've talked about today, plus some other hiring related goodies. So take some time and go grab those before your next interview. And be sure to hit subscribe for more systems and strategies to help your contracting business.